Hello.
I cannot tell you what a thrill this is for me.
Thank you.
I've been a fan for all my life.
Oh, how lovely. That's really nice to know.
I'll try to rush you through this because I know you've got so many, but I was noticing as I was preparing my interview that so many of the female Disney leads in animation have become part of this pantheon of Disney princesses. And it occurred to me that Alice is the only character to have actually been crowned queen, even if not in this feature. So technically, I think you outrank them.
Oh, my God, I never thought about that. That didn't cross my mind. I mean, when they talked about, grouping these ladies and they were the princesses, and then I thought, well, somebody mentioned something about that long ago. And I said, yeah, but Alice couldn't have been a princess. She was just a little girl who was growing up and had this marvelous adventure, but it had nothing to do with being a princess.
This is true. Now, how did you find out about the role's availability? Were you in England when you auditioned?
Oh, no. I actually had come to America, and I was under his nose when Walt Disney was looking for his Alice. And, he was looking for a voice that was pleasing to both American ears and British ears. And it was a British classic, and he is a stickler for authenticity. And he was definitely looking for British, but he wanted Americans to be comfortable with the British accent and, be able to listen to it without it being too strong an accent. But he also he wanted the acceptance of the British audience as well. Well, so anyway, I read for the part, and then they called me to the studio to read it again. And then a little while later, I was called to be told that I was going to do the voice of Alice, which I just couldn't believe. I mean, I just thought, this can't be. I mean, am I really going to play this very important character that's in this whole story, in this whole film? So, I was just really surprised.
Now, you said you were right under his nose. How do you recall your first meeting with Mr. Disney and your impressions of him then?
Well, I was very much aware of Walt Disney through my growing up years and having seen his prior animated features. They had been, most of them had been re-released at least once, and so there was Snow White, and there was Fantasia, and Bambi, and I had seen all these films, but I was also very aware of who it was that created these wonderful stories and this wonderful animation. So, to me, he was like a huge celebrity. So the idea of meeting this person was intimidating, and I was nervous. And we did have to meet for the first time to sign the contract and to take pictures, things like that. But what I found was this person who made me feel so very comfortable right from the beginning. And I'm assuming, having had two children, he had two daughters, older than I, but I mean, he'd had that experience and was used to small children. And he just sat me down and said, I've got this book here on the coffee table, and, Alice, and was I familiar with it? Well, of course I was, and, had it read to me when I was very little, and then until I was able to read on my own. And we sat and started looking at the book chapter by chapter, and I started conversing with him about them, and he was telling me about his vision and what things he was going to include from both books and how slight changes he was making for his interpretation. And before long, I just felt he was a friend. And I just felt very, very comfortable with him. So that was sort of my first experience with Walt Disney.
That's wonderful. Now, how busy was the promotional work? You had to do all these television appearances and publicity tours. I imagine that was quite, hard work, as exciting as it was for, you were a 12-year-old girl at the time.
No, you're absolutely right. It was a very, very busy time. Fortunately, it was in the summer, so I didn't have schoolwork on top of it. So that was a good thing. But we were flown to New York for a while. I don't remember if it was a week or it was 2 weeks worth of different things. But as I look back on it, I thought how smart it was of Disney to have me, instead of fly to England and then continue the same pace before the premiere, because they obviously were going to do the premiere in England since it was a British classic, and I had the opportunity of going on the Queen Mary on the voyage there and on the voyage back. And that, of course, took 5 days. And the idea was a little downtime before starting it all over again. And that really was a very, very good thinking on their part. They were really caring of what was happening with me, and being the age I was. You know, it's a whole new world and a whole new experience. And it was very exciting. But I'm glad, it was nice that I had that little break.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the 60th anniversary Blu-ray release includes, among its many bonus features, the unused pig and pepper scene, which was actually one of the more memorable scenes from the book. I'm kind of sorry it didn't make it to the film. Do you recall any other scenes that you recorded that were ultimately not used?
I am trying to remember. That's sort of a tough one. But what I was impressed with is some of the things that you happened to mention. The 60th anniversary and the Blu-ray version. That Blu-ray disc part does have quite a few features, as you mentioned, and one of them is when I was asked to also do the live action. I really enjoyed that experience a lot because there were many cute adventures that were involved with some of the setups that they had to produce so that I could do the action, so the animators could work with it. So one of them happened to be, these things are filmed on, let's say, 16 millimeter, and then it's shown on a little moviola, and then the artists can watch the movement, and that way they can see how the figure is moving, and it makes the action much more natural, because then they can draw from that. So a lot of that stuff disappeared, but there are a few that are still around, and one of them was when Alice had come down the rabbit hole and she was trying to get out to Wonderland, and she was encountered with a doorknob, and we'll go through that little scene. So you see me doing this live action in that black and white, and then right next to it, it shows what was done and how it came to be what was shown on the film. And, there's a lot of little things like that show you a lot of background about how the film was put together. So I had a lot of fun doing the live action portion.
I remember seeing that. That was a beautiful shot. I'd love to see the whole movie done in just that way. But like you said, it was lost.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they also had the live reference shots that you did with Ed Wynn and Jerry Colonna in the Mad Tea Party scene, which was just phenomenal.
Yes.
And you say you did live references for most, if not all, of the scenes. Did you play flamingo croquet with Verna Felton?
Yes. I don't remember exactly what contraption they had for that one, but I do know that they had to hoist me up on something with stilts so that I was catapulted into the air, and Alice was, as I was, also ticklish. So here I am giggling like crazy, and I can't get myself extricated from the flamingo so that I can make this shot. There was that scene, and then there was a scene with the Alice being too large for the rabbit's house, and so the wood shop created a small wooden house, and they could put it over my head so my arms could stick out, sat on a table. The animators came in to check it and said, oh, no, this is not going to work at all. We have to think of something else. So they had to postpone the shooting day and go back to the wood shop, and then they came back with a frame house. Well, of course, a frame house, the whole point of it being that Alice was moving her arms, but the animators were saying, yes, but in order to make it look realistic, we have to see her shoulders. behind that. We have to see that the movement starts with the shoulders, and it also starts with her body movements. Her upper body is going to sway, is going to do things. We want to see that so that we can animate it to make it look realistic. So I remember, a lot of interesting little episodes like that had to do with the live action.
All right. Now, how involved was Walt with all of this in the day-to-day workings? Did he come down often and supervise things?
No, but he was visible. I have to say that. I mean, he was just generally visible throughout the studio. I think he considered himself one of the creative team. And that was, I think, the whole concept with everybody. He'd go down to the cafeteria and go through the line with the lunches, with his tray. You'd see him in the elevator. You'd see him walking around the studio. Now, if, let's say, they were doing, the directors were doing a scene and they weren't quite sure, as happened once that I remember, and there was an interpretation of some lines, and they tried it one way, and then they tried it another way, and they were sat there listening to both of these, trying to decide, and then one of them said, well, why don't we just ask Walt down here, see what he thinks? So then he was down there within 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, it didn't take him very long, and there he was. And he heard the two interpretations, and he says, well, boys, I just don't know what you're worried about. I think the first one is just fine. So, he was around and he was visible, and that's sort of what I observed.
Okay. And did you manage to keep any favorite souvenirs from the production?
Okay, let me think. Yes, there was, when we did the special, and it was basically the first special that came on television before they did Christmas specials, and it was to promote Alice, and we filmed in August, hot August, but they had this Christmas tree up, and so it seemed like walking into Christmas in August, which was a very strange feeling. We went through what needed to be done, and then when everything was closed off and everything was finished, they started to take down, the fellows were taking down the tree when I was getting ready to leave, and they said, oh, Kathy, you want some of these decorations? Would I? And because they had the Disney characters on them, they were red balls, but they had the duck and Goofy and all of these Mickey and Minnie, all of the characters. So I was able to get those, and I have them to this day.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I noticed in your, and this is my final wrap-up question here, I noticed in your acting credits that you still are voicing Alice and, of course, Wendy Darling for video games, and I was wondering, are these new recordings, or are they recycling some old sound bites, or you're still going in and doing Alice?
Well, actually, I haven't gone in to do any recording for a while, so my guess is that they must be, as you said, the sound bites or something that they picked from a little bit further in the past.
Okay, because these were like in 2001, 2002.
Okay, then yeah. I guess that's what's happening.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I can't. This is one of my bucket list interviews of my life.
Oh, how nice! God, it's so nice of you to say. And I really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you so much. I have some work I had to do for Beth now, and I will. You will hear from me again, I hope.
Okay,
So,
great.
thank you so much.
Right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.